Comedians from the World Series of Comedy, Part 9. That's what's coming up on The Art of Bombing, episode 176.
My friend Dan, he's got a podcast, 'cause all comics need a podcast, and nobody had a podcast called The Art of Bombing. So Dan went out and bought a tape deck. Who knows why he bought a tape deck? Podcasts don't get played on tape decks, but Dan is from the 80s. So hey there, all you funny jerks, come talk to Dan about your work. Tell him all about your worst times. It's The Art of Bombing.
Welcome back to a brand new episode of The Art of Bombing. Dan Bublitz Jr. here with you today, continuing to release the episodes from the World Series of Comedy. Now, the World Series of Comedy is over. It is Monday, November 16th. It ended Saturday. I still have a few episodes that I recorded while I was out there that I'm trying to get released. And today my guest is Adam Gabel. He's a New York comedian. We had a great conversation, so that's what's going to be coming up on the podcast. Should let everybody know that once I get through these World Series of Comedy episodes, I will not be releasing a normal episode this week. I mean, I released 10 in the last week, so you've got plenty of content to catch up with. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating, a nice review. Everything else you can find on the artofbombingpod.com. Check out our new logo, get some merch, get some swag, you know, do the things. All right, here's my episode with Adam. Enjoy. So we're at the World Series of Comedy. How have you been enjoying yourself? I should say, have you been enjoying yourself rather than how? Like, it's just me assuming you're having fun.
I don't really have fun. Sort of ever, unless I'm at Disney World, because you can't not have fun at Disney World. Do these people know who I am? Is there going to be an intro before?
Yeah, I intro all my stuff,
okay,
so your name will get introed and all that in the intro.
Okay, good. Otherwise, these people will think you're just walking up to homeless people on the street. No, I always have fun with the World Series of Comedy, hanging out with comics and getting to know bookers and hearing more about how to be better at this.
Yeah,
I mean, it's weird because our job is fun. I mean, we don't do data entry, right? Like, so it's like you can separate. I spent putting numbers in a spreadsheet all day. That sucks. So that really anything else you're doing is fun. Mm-hmm. Just working is fun as a comedian, right?
Yeah, absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah, but the seminars have been really informational.
Seminars have been really cool. Yeah, it's like. Last year, I mean, there's obviously a difference between last year. I mean, I felt like there was more looseness, more of an opportunity to sort of really get into the, get to know people and be and share experiences and sort of coagulate.
Yeah.
And that's harder to do right now.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Obviously, with everything going on with COVID and pandemic and everything,
yeah.
definitely makes things a little weird. So was last year the first year? How many have you did the festival?
This is my second year in the festival.
Oh, okay.
I did it. I submitted last year with a tape that I thought was gonna wow the hell out of everybody. And that didn't happen. I was at Star Bar in Atlanta. It was a good set at a rough show. Mm. So I really impressed the people there, but it didn't show off what I really needed to do. So last year that set got me placed. I was typically I was always in the second round, so I was never in the top 40. But once 2 or 3 people dropped out, I was into the wild cards, and then a couple of them, when enough people dropped out, I moved up into like an actual second round. So I kind of coasted through all of that, performing with good performances and sort of improving on my video. And then last year at the main event, I got an excellent video that I just resubmitted and got me placed into the top 40 of everything. In fact, I was in one of the top 20 slots this year.
Oh, nice.
So it's not even, and I don't think I'm that much better of a comic. I think I just learned so much about what I needed to do to submit a good video that it put me in a better position.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I think I had a video from 4 years before the Star Bar one that probably would have gotten me placed better in the competition because of the things that they look for. Even though the jokes were not as strong, I think it would have put me in a position to maybe, I don't know, be placed a little higher. Now, obviously, I've gotten a good video from the festival and improved upon my material.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good because like you said, it places you higher. I didn't really understand how they did everything with like rankings and stuff. Like I'm still like now I'm kind of figuring out how it's going because now I see when people drop, other people are getting moved.
Right.
It's kind of like a ranking thing, basically.
Yeah, it's
like
a ranking thing.
It's almost like racing in the sense where how like with racing,
right.
They'll do like time trials, and based on how you do on that, determines your starting position. And it's kind of like that in the sense where, depending on where you score with your video or your whatever, that's kind of where you get placed in the festival. It's
sort of if you look at it, because it's called the World Series, people don't think about it's more like the way baseball, the way a full season. You're in these divisions, and each satellite, instead of a division, it's a night. So in this satellite, instead of the Western Division, there's the Thursday night, and then there's a Friday night and a Saturday night, and then from whoever places highest in those, it's sort of a head-to-head thing. And then there's the ability to, because of performing well in the satellites, not this year, but performing well in the satellites, you can earn points that get you placed higher in the top 101, which is tricky because then it just means you're going up against better comics.
Yeah.
Would you rather be on a weaker night and have an opportunity to kill in that and then fail on a stronger night, or go right to the stronger night and then fail? I'd rather have the wild card. The best ones I did were when I did really well on the wild card, and then I came in like 5th on the satellite. I still got 2 good sets out of it.
Yeah.
And I had 2 audiences seeing me and 2 groups of comic going, oh, that was great. You can come to my town and work with me.
Yeah, no, that's great. I actually, I moved on to the second round out of the wild card,
right.
And I was like, I wasn't even expecting that, so
right.
It was like, now it's just like, oh, well, cool, now I get another show.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is, because of you're judged on your live performance, if you get from the wild card into another round and then you keep moving up, it probably means your video is awful.
Yeah.
Right? Right? Because you should have been placed higher based on your performance, but your video is so bad that they think you're a shitty comic. And I heard about some guy at one of the satellites last year who came in on like a second round in a wild card, won the wild card, moved on to the round 2, like a second draw on the wild card. Wasn't even in the top 40. Second draw of the wild card, wins the wild card, gets to round 2, wins the round 2, gets to top 3, wins the whole weekend. And it's like, how bad was your video?
Yeah,
you're the best of all of the comics that submitted, and your submission didn't even get you in.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. Honestly, I didn't get into the top 101.
Right.
Not with my video.
Right.
Because I know that they basically said somebody dropped, and now you can take that spot. You got to like reply by whenever or whatever. So I know my video wasn't strong enough to get me into the main event anyway.
Right,
I did get into a couple satellites, but
again, there's less people submitting, and
it's a weird year or whatever. I mean, but I've gotten in prior years though too.
Oh, okay.
So I just didn't get to go. So like I was gonna go last year, but my grandmother had passed away like right before the World Series last year, so I didn't go to the main event. But but it's interesting. So this year though, and I don't remember, as far as my videos go, if I submitted something different last year than I did this year, I really don't remember.
Right.
But either way, I didn't get in this year on my video alone. It took somebody else not being available got me in. I've moved on now, but I'm not here for the contest. I mean, it's there and it'd be fun to win, obviously, but it's like I came with the mindset that I wanted to get some podcasting done, network with people, and just take in some of these seminars. So like, And I feel like having that mindset actually helped me perform better.
Yeah.
I wasn't overthinking, trying to I got to win, I got to be the best, I got to do this. I was just like, I'm coming to have fun.
Yeah.
And, so I really think that's what really helped me move on.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, last year we were in East St. Louis, and I know I performed in St. Louis a bunch of times, so I knew I was able to. I was originally on a Monday show, but they moved me to a Wednesday. But I did an invited mic on Monday, and then an invited mic on Tuesday, and then I had my festival show, and then I had a local showcase on Wednesday, 2 shows on Thursday. Friday was the only night that I wasn't performing, even though I only had 1 festival show. I wound up a Saturday night. Somehow I stumbled into headlining at one of their local, not a club, but one of their big independent venues.
Oh, okay, yep.
They have a place called the Improv Shop, where their smaller room, they do stand-up. Somehow I stumbled into headlining that room on the Saturday night, and I was like, I kind of want to be here rather than doing another 8-minute set in front of judges and worried that I'm going to get kicked out. I was doing a half an hour in front of a full room in St. Louis, and I got paid money. Yeah. I would rather do that. Now, of course, this year I don't really know anybody in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. Plus, I feel like the way to really book stuff is to hang out, do these kinds of things. If I was rushing off to a show, I never would have met you. I never would have, we never would have had this conversation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I did. I knew a couple people in Vegas, but I don't think with everything going on with the pandemic, it didn't really matter. I got booked, I got a guest spot on one of only a few showcases that's even running right now, because even a lot of the clubs are just now opening up within the last couple of weeks. And I know some of the clubs, and you're not going to get on a club probably in Vegas just for a guest spot. One of the panels they were even talking about that. They're like, we don't do that in Vegas.
There's no reason to do that because they're not trying to fill the time.
Exactly.
It's not like in other cities where that's all the people are doing. So you have to make sure that when they leave the show, they feel like they got a night's entertainment.
Yep.
A lot of these people, they want a 70-minute show. I used to, before I was a comedian, I was a lighting designer. I was talking about that in one of the panels. And the first time I was in Vegas, I was the assistant lighting designer at the MGM Grand for production of the show Grease, the Broadway show Grease, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a standard musical. It's 2 acts. There's the first act is an hour and 10 minutes, and then there's a 15-minute intermission, and the second act is 55 minutes. The whole night is 2.5 hours. We would go in Vegas and other casinos. We had a casino version of the show, which was 75 minutes long. A bunch of the numbers that no one would ever notice weren't. You go to a show like Grease, there's half a dozen, Summer Lovin', Grease Lightning. Yep. Nobody remembers Mooning, the song that one of the secondary characters sing. They cut that shit out, reorganize it, so suddenly the costume change can happen quickly. And now it's a 75-minute show, and instead of doing we'd go to Chicago and we'd do a week run, and we'd have 8 shows a week, 2 shows on Saturday and 2 shows on Sunday. We're doing 5 shows at the MGM Grand. We're doing a 3:00 show. We're doing a 5:30 show. We're doing an 8:00 show. We're doing a 10:30 show. Who's coming to see Grease at 12:30 at night in Las Vegas? Well, the guy who just lost $1,000 on the roulette table has got nothing else to do.
Yeah, that's one thing I've always found funny. Have you performed in a lot of casinos outside of just working the road and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I have some friends who have some rooms. They have a club in Atlantic City called AC Jokes, and they run shows in 3 different casinos.
Yeah, well, because a lot of times, when they do shows at casinos, or even if they have clubs at casinos, outside of Vegas, I'm talking about, that's pretty much all your audience is. It's people that are sad and disappointed because they didn't do well in the casino.
Right.
That are coming to the show and they managed to get some free tickets.
And it's even worse now because people come to, they come to Vegas or they come to Atlantic City and they go, well, we'll gamble during the day and then we'll go to dinner and then we'll kind of see what else is there. There's nothing else going on. Yeah. So these rooms are full of people who don't want to see comedy. These rooms are full of people who want to go see the Michael Jackson Experience, but the Michael Jackson Experience is closed.
Yep.
So there's tickets. Well, what do you have tickets for? Well, you can either jump off the top of the stratosphere Or you can go watch comedy. Well, I guess I'm going to go watch comedy. Who you got? Is it Chris Rock? No.
I wonder what the...
And then they find out, oh, it's some guy from Peoria. He's a national headliner. And the guy may have 50, maybe, it could be Mark Norman, right?
Yeah.
It could be Sheng Wang, right? It could be these people that you and I know are huge.
Yep.
But if you're from Peoria, you don't know who they are, so you're bored already.
Yep.
These are hard rooms to play. Even on a good day. Unless Vegas is full, because then you know that the people who are in the comedy clubs are the people who came to see comedy, because those shows are sold out at 5 o'clock.
Yep. And now I wonder, with that you saying that, I wonder how many people, when they're like, well, what's open? And they're like, well, we got a comedy show, or you can jump off the top of the tower. I wonder how many people choose the tower before the comedy.
They're like, at least the jumping off the tower will be over in 5 minutes.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I think the difference with the 6 o'clock and the 8 o'clock shows, people who come to 6 o'clock shows, 8 o'clock shows, they're getting ready to. If you're at 6 o'clock, you're probably going to do something else after.
Yep.
If it's 8 o'clock, that might be your night's experience. If you're at a 10 o'clock show, chances are you had dinner early, then you went and you got drunk, and you wandered around and realized there was and now you're in a comedy club, and
probably confused and don't remember how you even got there.
Exactly. And we all came here. We want to get our 6 minutes on tape. We don't want to argue with the guy who didn't want to come see comedy.
Right? Yeah, that's real true. Yeah, I was surprised, though, with the Monday shows, how full they were. That I didn't know what to expect on a Monday, plus with COVID and everything, and I was like, wow, actually we're at their capacity, their current capacity, which was pretty mind-blowing, which is also good. But
I knew that the World Series shows would sell out because Joe had his show here for so long. Mm-hmm. So I knew that his tickets would go because he's got people, and they come here every year. So he's got people who know what the World Series of Comedy is, or people who know him.
Yo, absolutely. Well, in the World Series of Comedy, the main event was here for several years, too, when he lived here. So that definitely helps. But let's get into the art of bombing, and I'll go ahead and let you talk about a time where you felt like you bombed really bad.
Well, the problem with that is that you don't have enough episodes for me to tell you. I have my style is very premise setup punch, right? It's very jokey, and when I say jokey, I don't mean that it's like ribbing you in the elbow, but it's very clear that what I'm telling you is a joke. It's not true, and it's something that I sat down and wrote out. And so many audiences these days are used to the Louis C.K. the monologue kind of thing, where it sounds like audiences think that this is just what happened that day, right?
Yep.
This is just a funny person talking about what happened that day. So a lot of times audiences will turn me off the second I start telling jokes, because they're like, oh, well, I could have heard this joke anywhere. And that's not really true because my sensibility is different. I think some of what happens is that audiences, I get in a position where audiences aren't ready for that. Like I was telling you before that I was on one of these festival shows last year, and I was up second, and I was like, all right, well, at least they'll be the host and then the first person, so that they'll have experienced what that sort of conversational style is. Maybe they'll understand that what I'm doing is different and not, oh, this doesn't make any sense. And then I'm used to being, my voice is weird, and you don't see me. I have a weird cadence, and I wear this hat, and it's all very strange. And that's what I like, is I like people to go, whoa, this is very different. And so I'm doing this showcase, and the guy before me is even more not regular comedy. He's from Ohio, and he's like, he's doing his own little sitcom. He's doing his own little character. It's not jokes at all. And so then when I got up in front of them, they just thought this was going to be everything, and they were really unhappy. I did a Purim show. Do you know what Purim is? Purim is like Jewish Halloween.
Oh, okay.
It's in the spring. So I was at BB King's in Manhattan once when there was this room full of young Jews that they were all there at a party, and we were supposed to be the comedy. I'm not quite sure what they thought they were booking, and these people were just not interested at all in anything that we had to say about comedy. And that was fun because this guy walked in and that was really just about ripping apart people's costumes. One time this girl's hair caught on fire in the middle of my set. That was a really hard thing to do because I was actually having a really good set, and she threw her head back and it went into her hair went into a candle.
And she had that much.
And she had that much hair, and it just sort of it just shot up. And then I saw the guy behind her was patting her on the head. So I thought she was really having a good time. So I started to really just get into it with her. And then I realized once I noticed the smell, I was like, oh, something is not going on. Something not good is going on here. So I actually had to stop the show. And, I bombed in. I've been up in front of people and just nothing.
Oh yeah, we all have. It happens.
Nothing. This is the thing about when you ask me, I don't really have a story about that.
Yeah.
Because that's just sort of what happens during my one. I win over crowds and then lose them right away. I mean every single joke is an opportunity to bomb. I have jokes that I count on every night. And then I close with them after 7.5 minutes in a showcase. And I close with them after 7.5 minutes of fire. And then the audience is that one joke, which is my bring back the audience joke, just bombs right there. There's not even really a story about it. I think perhaps maybe I've forgotten about all of the really terrible ones.
Trying to block them out.
I hate it when you get a rim shot. That's the worst. It's, the art of bombing is just, you come see my show.
I think you're the first person that's ever said that, except maybe by me. I might have been I've actually said that sometimes on stage because people will introduce me as, he's like, oh, he's got a podcast, The Art of Bombing or whatever. And then if I'm not doing well, I'll be like, see, I'm showing you about The Art of Bombing right now.
One of the things that I think is really great is that if you're not doing well and the audience, and you can commiserate with the audience about how it's not going well and they know it's not going well, then that's an opportunity to turn it around. I mean, I've got a million savers, I'm not Obi-Wan. You're looking at me like I'm Obi-Wan Kenobi. These are not the jokes you're looking for, or something like, I'll just add the laugh track to that joke. A million of those things. And I've started to take them out of my act because I used to have them as savers.
Yeah.
I feel like it's easier to sort of commiserate with an audience at the moment about what's happening. About rather than sort of throwing out some kind of stock line. Maybe, let me get the last guy on here before, or if the previous comic had just talked about, eating pussy for 7 minutes. And you go, well, look, I know you guys don't like these jokes, but that guy already did my 7 minutes of eating pussy, or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
The art of bombing, just be present, enjoy the thing. Sometimes it's even that much more. A lot of my friends will tell me that they like it better when I had a guy told me a couple of weeks ago, he said, I love booking you because I know I'm going to love all of your jokes. And even if the audience doesn't, the bewilderment that I see on their faces makes it worthwhile for me.
That's a pretty high compliment.
Yeah, I'm a comics comic, right? Which is just a nice way of saying audiences don't like me.
Yep,
so I've got tons of jokes that comics will come up to me and they'll say that's the best joke I ever heard. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes the entire room is silent and my friends are in the back, and I don't play to the back. I don't want just the comics to laugh. Sometimes if I'm in a room and I know it's not going well, I'll do a joke just to entertain the comics. But sometimes the best sets that I have are the ones where where I develop something really funny that the comics like, so that when I am in front of 60 comedy fans at a club where they're charging $65, because the people are, if you're paying $65 a ticket plus the 2 drink minimum, you're a comedy fan.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And you're going to dig what I'm doing more than the person who's only there because they didn't want to jump off the top of the stratosphere.
Yeah. Do you find because with this style and being kind of a comics comic, do you find it harder for getting booked and stuff, like as far as like club work goes and just work in general? Like I know that kind of comedy can sometimes do really good in like comedy festivals and can probably get you into comedy festivals because it's something different, for one, which, as somebody that does comedy festivals and has helped with producing festivals, if there's somebody that really stands out because they're doing something different than everybody else, they're going to get our attention.
Yeah.
So it's definitely easier to get attention to get like in a festival. But like you said, when and they even said it at one of the industry panels is that, the paying customers is who needs to matter. So do you find that sometimes it's hard to get booked because of that, or
100%?
Yeah.
It is a comedy audience that's going to appreciate me the most, and bookers are trying to win over new people all the time. I mean, if you got 200 seats to fill every weekend for 5 shows, that's 1,000 people. Chances are you're in a city that maybe has 80,000 people. Now, 80,000 people, that's a lot of people, and 1,000 is only 1/80th of them. But half of those people are kids. Yeah. The other half of those people can't afford of the 40,000 that are left. 20 of them can't afford to come to comedy, and you just keep chopping it away. Audiences, club bookers are definitely gonna isolate the people who are more likely to entertain the masses than the 50 comedy fans of the 80,000 people in the room, because they got to fill the other 950 seats for the weekend. I do find that it's harder, but what I will say is it's easier for me to get booked to tag on with other comics. Okay. Because I've got a lot of comics who want me to go with them, because they know, number one, as a very scripted kind of joke-telling comic, they know that I'm not going to do whatever I want on a different night. Headliner wants to go up knowing what the room is, right? And they'd almost rather go up to a room that's prepared. Let's say that the features job is to prepare the room 100% for the headliner. Mm-hmm. They'd rather go up, and the host is 30%, right? So the features job is to get the room the rest of the way. They'd rather go up, some headliners would rather go up where they know that the room is going to be consistently prepared at 70% every night, rather than one night the guy's going to crush with his pussy eating bit, and then the next night he can't even get through that bit because somebody got offended 2 jokes into a 5-minute bit. These people know what they're getting with me every time. Mm-hmm. And if I'm in a room where the environment is a cultivated comedy environment, chances are I'm going to prepare half of that room to 100% anyway. Mm-hmm. I'm going to prepare, half of those people are going to go, I'm going to walk out and they're going to go, I've seen enough headliners to know that this guy knows what he's doing. And the other half of the people who are, bachelorettes who just want to hear the pussy eating bit, they're going to maybe the headliner will be better. Yep. I think, and I can do crowd work, but I don't want to do crowd work. I don't want to talk to you. I don't give a shit about you.
I'm kind of the same. I'm not, I very rarely try to go out into the crowd. And usually, even early on when I started doing comedy, I had a hell of a time dealing with hecklers because even getting heckled, I didn't want to go out into the audience. Right. Not because I was afraid of just because I didn't want to, I always felt like if I engaged, then I was inviting them to keep doing it. And then I wrote these jokes and I spent the time and I want to tell these jokes. I don't want to, if I wanted to make shit up on the spot, I'd be on an improv team. That's how I feel about it.
Right.
And no offense to improv. I mean, because there's really great improv shows and people are really good at it and good for them. Not me.
Not every comic wants to have that environment. And I do think that it's like they've been saying at these panels, is that a comic who can do 20 minutes, 25 minutes, half an hour without engaging the audience at all, who has 30 minutes of material that maybe not everybody's going to get, but everyone's going to understand this is a professional comedian doing this kind of material. And then the headliner is you got, oh, don't worry, this guy's not right for me, but the headliner's going to come out and do 45 minutes of whatever. Bookers do like that. Now, in a place like New York, where it's all showcases, it's a very different kind of thing, because one comic doing that can make it very hard for other comics, especially because I could, instead of going up in advance of a headliner who likes to do crowd work, and then nobody's done crowd work before me, I could be following that headliner at a club in New York, because that's the way the showcase works, right? Yeah. It's like my spot. I'm not necessarily opening for Mark Norman. I could be on a show where Mark Norman has the 7:30 spot and I have the 7:50 spot. That's going to come off very differently, because Mark Norman, for example, is going to be somebody who is used to working as a headliner and engaging with the audience in a way that I don't. So in a showcase environment, it's a very different kind of thing. And also, they have to make sure that they put me up in a place where you've seen one, two, or three comics who are doing this thing, and then here's another guy doing something different. You can appreciate that it's different. If it's a host and then me on a showcase show, very often the audience doesn't understand comedy enough to understand what I'm doing that night. You know what I mean? They haven't been. Yes, it is very hard, and I also think that because my persona is very New Yorky, it's very New York kind of caricature. They appreciate me in the middle of the country because it's something that they can grasp. Yeah, I've seen this kind of character on stage, on TV. I understand who they are. It's a Kramer. It's a it's a Reverend Jim kind of thing. If you're older and you like Taxi, it's that. In New York, when you're surrounded by New Yorkers, New York bookers are like, my audience is not going to appreciate that. I don't necessarily agree. I have found over the years a really good way to get in, to really hook New York audiences, because most New York audiences, not now, but most New York audiences are from the Midwest. They're people who came to New York to do something. On Tuesday, they went to see The Lion King. On Wednesday, they went to the Top of the Rock. On Thursday, they went to the club. So they're into it. But I think that bookers don't think that the audiences will be.
Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. Now, usually I talk about, bombing as far as like what you do to like analyze a set. But given our conversation of you telling a story, and you don't really have them because it's just kind of what you do. So
I don't want to make it sound like I go up on stage to bomb. I don't want to make it sound but what I mean is that it's not like I'm constantly play at 85% and then once in a while have a 25% set. There's a lot of dynamics in my performances. So
yeah, well, that's why you just said let me finish. I wasn't saying that. It sounded like that, but what I was getting at is because usually I ask how people analyze their sets, but because you have ups and downs like that dynamic, I was going to change it, and I wanted to ask you, how do you analyze a joke when it doesn't work? Like to try to figure out what happened with this particular spot where you had the dip in the set.
Sometimes it's a matter of where I put it in the set, right? Like sometimes it's a matter of Jason, who's the vice president of the festival, and this is something I was doing and didn't even realize it. I can't remember who he referenced, but he referenced another comic, very writerly. He said, you do one joke for everybody, one joke for some people, one joke for a couple people, and one joke just for yourself. Because when the one joke just for yourself wins somebody over, that person's a fan for life. So I have to structure my sets like that. I have to structure my set where I do a joke that everybody's going to get, that is going to keep the attention of the people who are not writerly. And then, and then wean away the audience and then win them all back. Yep. So sometimes it's a matter of, I thought this was I thought this was a joke that was going to get most of the audience, but really only get some of the audience. I got to do a joke half a dozen times before I establish whether or not it doesn't work. And a lot of it is, when I consistently only hear audience comics laughing, I know that it doesn't really fit in my set. And when I have people who can easily find the hole in the joke, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. When I find a joke that has an easy hole in it, I got to get rid of it. When I find a joke that people reluctantly laugh at, that's a joke that I want to keep. A lot of times if I got a new joke and it's consistently not hitting right away, I'll wait until the audience, one night after this joke that I've told to half a dozen comics and they all go, that's the best joke I ever heard. Right? And then I tell it on stage 3 times and it's not working. Then the 4th time, maybe I'll just wait and see if the audience picks up on it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I'm just not giving audiences enough time to get the joke. I had a joke where I didn't even realize that the best way to get the laugh was just to explain the joke. Just explain to people what the joke is about, because it's so hard for them to understand that, usually if you have to explain the joke, the people get it and you're just like, this is why it's funny. But sometimes people are just so far removed from understanding that even just explaining it becomes the punchline. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then a lot of times it's, okay, well, I need to rearrange. There's this one word that I think people understand what it means, and they don't. I got to, people tell me I don't give enough time to my jokes. Sometimes I have jokes. I do a joke, and then I do a joke about the joke that explains to you why. It's not so much as explaining the joke as in it's a reaction to the joke. I'll give you an example. I went to Dallas. I got a JFK Pez dispenser. That's the one where the Pez goes in the front but comes out the side. Now, that joke doesn't always hit, so I actually have a guy on the other side of the room to tell it from a different angle, right? So that's where I win the audience back, is because I go, comes out the side, and invariably, right, some guy who thinks that his job, he paid $65 to come to the club so that he can grade every joke, right? The guy in the back who's holding up the sign that says 6.5, right? Right. So I've won over audiences by bringing it back and saying, that joke doesn't always hit. That's why I got a guy. Invariably, that guy laughs at that joke. But do I want the opportunity for that guy to lose the audience? Do I want to win? Do I want in one joke to have to lose the audience and win them back? Probably not. Maybe when I've got 3 albums out and audiences know what to expect, when they hear something that they don't think is funny, they're going to wait for the next part.
Yep.
So that's a joke maybe I'll stick in my back pocket for later when I have my own audience. Or, whatever. Somebody says, I've got 65 people who want to come see you, whatever it is,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, that always helps too. Like, that's one thing I think most comics, that's what we're trying to build our own fan base. Right. And I mean, ultimately, I feel like in comedy, the biggest success is just being able to go places and have people come see you. Like Doug Stanhope, great example of that, how he's built his own audience, right, and people like him for what he does.
Yeah.
And he can go anywhere and sell out a room, and he does it on his terms.
Yeah,
with people that love him.
It's hard to find those people, because if nobody knows who you are, then they're not going to know that they like you.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's the hard part of this.
Right.
That's the slow part of the journey, trying to get to that point. That's for sure. Do you have any pre-show rituals or traditions?
Well, usually I think about killing myself a couple times.
Most comics do that after they do a bad set.
Yeah,
or after they perform, not before.
Not so much. I mean, I like to rehearse I like to know what it's going to be. So I'll usually, if I'm doing 20 minutes, I'm not going to run the entire set right before I go up. But if I'm doing a showcase set like this, I'll run it through. I don't have anything that I do every time, but there are some things that I've found in certain situations that have helped. years ago, when I was a little kid, I was involved in this Shakespeare, I can't remember. It was some kind of theater where we were doing things that didn't connect to us as little kids. And so they had us do an exercise where we had to say our lines as fast as possible. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing that I'll do sometimes. If I want to know that I know my set backwards and forwards, I'll just run it at, quadruple speed. I'll just, because that way you're not going to lose it.
Yeah.
I don't really know. It's not really nothing specific.
All right, right on. The last thing I like because I talk about bombing a lot on this podcast, obviously. So I like to end positive. And what's been your favorite gig or show so far, or one of them?
Yeah, I mean it's tricky because a lot of times I'll walk off stage after having like a great set and I'm like, this is the best thing ever, and then the next night the one thing that I really like to talk about, it's one thing that I'm really proud of, is I got an opportunity to perform at the Friars Club in New York, which was really cool. I don't know if you know about the Friars.
Yeah, I'm aware of the Friars.
For people who don't know, it's sort of an old club where a lot of like a Jerry Lewis and a Buddy Hackett, those kind of people used to go to hang out. Bob Hope, Milton Berle, and they have once or twice a week they have shows that are for their members, and a lot of times those are that's where the Comedy Central roast started. So there's a certain level of that. Now I wasn't performing for any of those people. I was performing for people who were members of the Friars Club, but I was on the show with Vanessa Hollingshead and Carol Montgomery and Emma Willman was on the show, and I managed to get in because of another booker who had liked me and he was going to put me on a show, and he got me on this show. It was being run by the people who run Catch a Rising Star, and I was nervous, and there were 6 comics on the show. It was like 4 headliners, me and another comic who was a feature, and I had a great set. I mean, everybody in the room liked me, and all the headliners on the show liked me, and Michelle Ballin was there, who I had known from Last Comic Standing, and she really liked me too. So for me to be able to perform really well at the Friars Club in front of other comics was really unbelievable at the time. Now looking back on it, that's not the audience I want, because those are the people who are supposed to like me, right? Those, from what I've said before, that's my audience.
Yep.
Right? Like, it's better for me if I had some time that I crushed in front of, a room full of bikers. That's the audience that I should really be seeking. So to that extent, I wouldn't say there's anything that I could call up like that, but the Friars Club was really cool.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Well, where can people find you online?
The best way to find me is my website, adamtellsjokes.com. I got video on there. I have a YouTube show called The Lifestyle Report, where I just make up things about celebrities. And I do a little bit of visual arts, and I throw I make some graphics and stuff like that. But if you go to adamtellsjokes.com, I got some short clips, I got some videos, and I got some episodes of that show.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
The Art of Bombing is a Blitzed Entertainment production. Hosted and produced by Dan Bublitz Jr., The Art of Bombing intro music was written and performed by John Holt. All other music used in this podcast was under the Creative Commons license. If you would like to help The Art of Bombing, you can do so by subscribing, rating, and reviewing our show on whatever podcast application you use to listen to The Art of Bombing. For previous episodes, blogs, and more, visit artofbombingpod.com. Have a great week, and remember, stay safe so you can live to love.